Tonight's shir is going to have two parts to it, a long part and a short part. The short part, which we'll hopefully get to, is going to be the new mission on Chav Zayin Amud Aleph. But over Shabbos, I was drawn in a magnetic fashion to the Tosafot that you see before you on Daf Chav Vav Amud Bet. And as you'll soon see, this is a good example of a Tosafot that, though it appears here, this is its headquarters, actually has, I think, crucial application for all of us when we make brachas, whenever we make brachas. And we should have this in mind a little bit as we go through. I want to show it to you, and it looks scary, I will grant you, because there's a lot of text, but I broke it up. I'm going to put it on the screen in a minute so you can actually see it inside, but a little bit more broken up. It'll look as it would, it's going to be on a computer screen, but if you can't follow along, if it's a little challenging to follow along on the page of the Gemara, you could just follow along on the screen as we're going through it. What this Tosafot is about is the anchor in the Gemara is about the Mishnah. It described on 26b that Rav Tzadok ate pachut mikebetza. He said he ate less than the size of a kibetza. Natlo b'mapa. He held it in some kind of a napkin or something. V'achal chutz l'sukkah. He ate it outside the sukkah. V'lo birech acharav. He didn't make the bracha after. He didn't say the blessing that comes after it. And what bracha might that be? It sounds like the bracha that he didn't make is Birkat Hamazon. If you look at Rashi on 26b on the Mishnah, Rashi writes in Natla b'mapa. Rashi writes Lo natal yadav ela karach b'mapa yadav. He wrapped his hands with the napkin and he put the food inside it. But why? Rashi says mishum nikiyut. He did this for the sake of hygiene, not because of issues related to natilat yadayim. We'll soon see why Rashi had to argue that. The kasavar pachut mikebetza lo bay natilat yadayim lo bay sukkah lo bay birkat hamazon la'acharav. Rabbi Tzadok was of the opinion that when you have less than a kezayit of bread, you don't need natilat yadayim, you don't need a sukkah, and you don't need to recite Birkat Hamazon. Did Darish ki Rabbi Yehuda. He follows the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, the Gemara in Brachot, and Daf Mem Tet Amud Aleph, that v'chalta v'savata uveirachta means achila sheish basviya v'hainu kebetza. That achila that requires Birkat Hamazon is achila that is satiating. And that achila that is satiating means that is the size of a kebetza. Today that would be like the size approximately of 2 eggs. That would be kibetza, according to Rav Avram Chaim Noeh, if you want to get technical, is 57.6 milliliters of volume. For the Chazon Ish, it's just shy of 100 milliliters, 99.5 milliliters of volume. So it's sort of hard for people to imagine what that amount is. It's about 2 eggs, let's say, today. And that's a kibetza. So according to Rabbi Yehuda, if you have less than a kibetza, you don't actually need Natilat Yadayim, and you don't need Birkat Hamazon. We don't paskin this way, by the way, but that's at least the claim of Rabbi Yehuda, and that's mentioned here in Rashi. But for sure you have to say the bracha motzich min haaretz, or whatever the Birkat Hane'anin might be, the bracha on that food that you're going to enjoy, regardless. And why? Very obviously, because you cannot enjoy anything from this world without giving its due to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, i.e., by acknowledging that it came from Hashem. Otherwise, it's trespass, right? Right?
Is there a minimum that we paskin now?
No, the psak really is, number one, any smidgen of food that you take into your mouth for the purpose of enjoyment, you need to make a bracha rishona on. And when it's bread, essentially, if you're, that's a little more complicated, whether you have to wash or not, depending on whether it's a motzi or mezonot. It's not for now. It's a big sugya about when and how. I mentioned the pizza case a little while, maybe it was last week or 2 weeks ago, with my talk with Rabbi Genak in line there at the APAC. But basically, you're not allowed to enjoy anything in this world without a bracha. The exception is if it's medicinal and has no taste at all, or a negative taste, that tastes bad, or if it's to taste soup to make sure that it isn't spoiled, or some such thing, a food that you're cooking, any food that you're cooking. And then there's a shiloh, though, if you're swallowing it, then a lot of poskim start to say, well, then you really do have to make a bracha rishona if that was your intention. So that's the basic idea. But what we learn here is that Rabbi Yehuda maintains that you need to eat a kibetza in order to need washing and benching. According to Rabbi Meir, who is the bar plukta of Rabbi Yehuda in that Gemara, Masechet Brachot, the line is really at a kezayit. That already, if you ate a kezayit, you have to bench. How much is a kezayit? Around the size today of an egg, approximately. I know there's jumbo and large, and a regular sized egg, about one size, that's around a kezayit of today. Why it's around double what the size should have been has to do with a long story, also not for now, involving Rabbi Yehuda and the way in which he believed that sizes of foods shifted over time. He has a whole elongated proof, but that's become basically accepted lahalacha and for most poskim and in most cases. Rav Avram Chaim Nah thinks that a kezayit is 28.8 milliliters, and the Chazon Ish 49.8 milliliters. Again, unless you're standing with an Erlenmeyer flask or a beaker of some sort, it's very hard to make these measurements, but it would be approximately the size of an egg today. Look with me inside. The question already? Go ahead.
I have two questions.
Oh, yeah, please.
One is, how is Sully Berger not falling over? Sully, you're like leaning sideways the way you have your camera. That's amazing that you could sit like that. There you go. Okay. So that answered that. Second question: would he consider that if you ate less than a kazayas, but you want to bench and you're going to have a meal, but you just want to have a little tiny piece of bread? Would he consider that as a bracha levatala?
It's not a bracha levatala, but that's part of the calculus. Meaning, the issue is to be kovei suda. If you eat a kazayas worth, then you can bench. If you ended up not eating kazayas worth, then you would just not bench, but you would have still made netilas yadayim and amotzi by virtue of the fact you're eating a bread item. I don't want to go too far afield because I want to hit this Tosafot, but let's just say there's a whole shiur in and of itself and hilchos brachos to be had on the subject of what do you do when you are eating a little, what is the difference between a cracker, a tam-tam, and a piece of matzah that's been cut in a shape? You have to wash for matzah, you don't have to wash for tam-tams. You ever see the matzah tams? They look like tam. So you have to wash every time you eat that. What about melba toast? What about crackers? What about saltines? What about Ritz crackers? What about a piece of bread that's that little bread that's dried out that they put, a piece of
croutons?
A crouton. What about croutons in a salad? All different shilas, hamotzi or not.
What about
like, why did I whet the appetite and not serve the meal? But learn this Tosafot with me. Trust me, you'll feel like, we learned something on the daf, and we're going to say afterward, we learned some of the inner workings of how Tosafot thinks about what Rashi says. I'm going to use this screen over here and alter between the screen and the Gemara, just because when you look at this Tosafot, it is one extremely long text, which for some of us is already daunting just to look at it. But one of the secrets about Tosafot I found over the years, just my experience, the long Tosafot oftentimes is a simpler Tosafot. It has more of a narrational quality. The ones that are more nerve-wracking, at least for me, and anxiety-provoking, the ones that are small, and the language is so terse, and there's so many points that they assume, the Ba'ai Tosafot assume that you really, it's hard to hold it together. But this is not as hard one, an example. So, and here's right here in the beginning of this Tosafot, you can see it on the screen that I'm giving to you, is the quote from the Gemara in Masachet Brachot. Don't forget, what Tosafot generally try to do is to reconcile Sugya A and Sugya B. There's a thesis, what it says on our page. There's an antithesis, something that contradicts it seemingly on another page of Shas. And then the thesis, the antithesis comes to a synthesis, how to reconcile the two Gemaras. That's one function of Tosafot. Another function of Tosafot is often how to reconcile Rashi's understanding of the Gemara here with our understanding of the Gemara elsewhere. And sometimes that doesn't end in a synthesis as much as refutation of Rashi's approach or criticism of Rashi's approach. This is all part of the Mechamta Shel Torah. So I'm now learning this first paragraph, which you can see in the Gemara, is just down the right-hand column, the outer column. So let's go. Birech Acharav. Savar la ki Rabbi Yehuda, the Birech shlosha she'achlu. So he follows the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. We saw just down Rashi. The Darish v'chalta tzvat v'rachta achila sheish basriya, the hainu kebetza. You have to eat a kebetza in order to have Birkat Hamazon. Rabbi Meir disagrees. Rabbi Meir palig v'amar the mavarchim b'kezayit. If you eat a kezayit, it's enough. V'nira halacha kavate. The halacha seems to follow Rabbi Meir. In fact, that's the Tosafot, right? By the time you get to the poskim, achronim, everybody agrees to follow Rabbi Meir. Midabrin and paraketsim mavarchin. Am Rabbi Chia bar Abba ni reiti Rabbi Yochanan shachal gezayit meliach ubirech alav tchila v'sof. Now, what's this? It's another story. Rabbi Chia testifies. Rabbi Chia says, I saw Rabbi Yochanan. He ate a salted olive, and he benched at the beef before it and after it. Now, what do you mean he benched? Birkat Hamazon and an olive? That's very strange. But maybe it means the bracha achrona. V'od amrina and Birech shlosha she'achlu. Amar Rabbi Chia bar Abba Rabbi Yochanan. La'olam eino motzi rabim yidei chovatan ad sheyochal kezayit dagan. A person cannot be motzi the rabim in their chova of Birkat Hamazon. You can't say the Birkat Hamazon for someone else. You can't lead the benching unless you ate a kezayit of dagan, means of grain. V'chein amar Rav Huna bar Yehuda mishmei the Rav. Okay, all this sort of preamble. The point is here that if you ate a kezayit of dagan, you ate a kezayit of bread or of a grain product, you would be able to be motzi the rabim in their chova of a bracha achrona, whether that's ala michya or birkat hamazon, right? You see this sometimes. People are at a kiddush, they turn to one person, oh, say ala michya for everybody. So how can that person say ala michya for everybody? Everybody ate something. This person ate at least a kezayit. It's not very much a kezayit, right? It's basically like a big mouthful. We're not talking about a huge quantity. So for that already, there'd be a bracha achrona. And that seems to be the halacha. So this first paragraph just says, yes, Rabbi Tzadok must follow Rabbi Yehuda. Therefore, he didn't bench on whatever it is that he ate, because he probably didn't eat enough, because it was less than a kibetza. But clearly, Rabbi Tzadok can't hold like Rabbi Meir, because according to Rabbi Meir, the halacha follows Rabbi Meir. We need no more than a kezayit, right? This is the line. Okay? I underlined it. Yes? Everyone with me so far? Okay. Now, what we're going to see next is a new category of thinking about things. In addition to quantity, there's a characteristic of food that is of great interest to us, and we should be familiar with it. It's the quality of being a beria. A beria means literally a creature. What it means is a whole unit of something. It is something that is entirely self-contained. And it is a unit that is not part of a bigger whole, but is a standalone in its completeness. That is a special halachic status. So the next thing the Bali Tosafot do in this next paragraph, right over here, is paragraph number 2, right, which is not too far down in this Tosafot, if you're following along over there, right? It's Umitoche Yerushalmi, the next word. It's the third word in, I'd say now, up against where the word tefillin appears in the Gemara. Follow your eye to the right of the word tefillin, and you'll see it there. Umitoche Yerushalmi. You can just follow with me on the screen in case that's easier. Now, from the Yerushalmi, it sounds that once you're dealing with something that is a beria, you don't even need a kezayit. Umitoche Yerushalmi mashma the beria lo ba'inin kezayit afilu preda achat shel anav, one grape. O preda achat shel rimon, one seed inside a pomegranate. Te'una bracha lifaneha, that's not a chiddush, by the way, but the chiddush is ule achareha. Need a bracha in both. Even though he didn't make the grade, the fact that it's a self-contained unit of something, examples including what sounds like one little piece of a pomegranate. It's infinitesimal in its size. It sounds like it's a beria, and that's enough. Rabbi Yochanan nasav zeitu ubarach lefanav ula'acharav. V'hava Rabbi Chia bar Abba mistakel bei. Rabbi Yochanan ate from an olive. He literally just took the olive and he consumed it, and right after he finished eating it, he saw that Rabbi Abba saw that his Rabbi Yochanan made a bracha, and Rabbi Abba was staring at him. So va'amar le Rabbi Yochanan, bavla mat mistako bi. Babylonian. His student Rabbi Chia was from Bavel. Rabbi Yochanan was from Eretz Yisrael. So Babylonian. What's your issue? What's your problem? Right? Leidlach the kol shehu mimin shiva taun bracha lefanav Acharav. Don't you hold that anything that is from the 7 species of Israel needs a bracha before it and after it? Right? So, of course, obviously, Rabbi Chia agrees. Right? Itle, meaning it's of course you agree to that, right? Umat srichale. What really he was asking about in that look was what he had done in this action Rabbi Yochanan had done, which is mipnei shegar inato memaato, because the seed, the inedible part, let's say in an olive, or even the pip that is inside the seed of the pomegranate, actually diminishes its size. In other words, when we say the word kezayit or kebetza, we mean food whose a total volume does not include the pit. We're not going to make the pit be part of the story. So really, if you're eating a zayit, an olive that has a pit in it, you really have to eat a little more than one zayit to get up to a kizayit, because the pit doesn't count towards the total volume you need. Follow?
Well, if it doesn't have a pit, there's still the hole inside where the pit was.
And if it doesn't have the pit, right, so that the point is the hole doesn't count. It's not the food, it's the space. Okay? But the point is that the garin, the seed, the pit, is not going to start to the shear of the kizayit. So he couldn't understand how come he say the bracha achrona on one of these. Understand? On one olive that he saw him eat. He ate the one olive, but it's not really supposed to be enough. So v'leit le Rabbi Yochanan shegarnit mimato, right? So the Rabbi Yochanan doesn't have this issue that the garin is going to minimize its volume. Does he not have it? So the point is, ma'avid le Rabbi Yochanan, what compelled or impelled rather Rabbi Yochanan to do what he did, to make a bracha achrona, even though he hadn't actually eaten really a kizayit worth of olive, because if you eat a zayit, it includes the pit. And that was also what was odd. He swallowed the olive with the pit. So Ronnie, not pitted, but with a pit. So he consumed the pitiful olive by swallowing it whole, whatever he did, and then he made a bracha achrona. So the Talmud looking at him. So what are you looking at me for? Right? Everybody knows that really you need to take into account the fact that the pit itself is not part of the volume. Or if it was emptied out, if it was a pitted olive, then it's at least a space in between. But what was the chiddush of Rabbi Yochanan? Ma'avid le Rabbi Yochanan, I underlined it, mishum beria. What he did because the olive is a closed, complete unit. When he ate the beria, he could make the bracha after it, even though it didn't have a kazayit. So not a case where there was no pit, but davka there was a pit, but it was a closed, sealed object, the olive in and of itself, and therefore he made the bracha.
How does that fit with the one seed from the limon?
So the one seed from the limon is it would also be considered to be an example of it being a beria. It's a closed unit as a seed. It's true, it's held in the container of the rind and the outer casing, but the fact is that each little seed, that's the Gemara's at least making a case that it should be considered a beria, and therefore it's a bracha rishona, bracha achrona, regardless of its size. And it is a very small size.
Thank you.
So that's you're welcome. So the idea here of Tosafot is just to say Milta de Rabbi Yochanan Amara, right? That what emerges from what he has just taught us, Shekain afilu preda achat. Sorry. Shekain. What we're learning from Rabbi Yochanan is even one grape or one seed from the Rimon, shituna bracha lefanav ula'achrav. You would need a bracha before and after. That's what we're learning from Rabbi Yochanan. That's what it sounds like. Okay? Everybody with me?
Well, the both of those also are mimin shiva.
Yes.
So,
Has to be min shiva. Beria, I mean shiva.
uh-huh.
But wheat is also min shiva. And barley is also min shiva, right? So look at this. Uvashas shalanu, yesh kein masazeh. We have a story just like this in our shas. What's going on? There's two shases, the Yerushalmi and the Bavli. So there's a version of the story told from the perspective of Chachmei Yerushalayim, which means they were really in the Galil, but Rabbi Yochanan among them. And then there's the version in our shas of Bavel, the shas of Rabbi Chia, right? Basically. Not exactly, but something like that. So in our shas, Yesh Kei Masazeh, Perakates Mavarchin, Dam Rabbi Chia bar Abba, Ani Ra'ite Rabbi Yochanan Sha'achal Zayit Maliach, Birech alav tchila v'sof. I saw that he did this, and he made a bracha before and after. Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah Rabbi Zera, Heichi Barech Rabbi Yochanan, Azayit Maliach. Kevin the Shakli Legarinte, Bitzar Le Shiura. Once you take out the pit of an olive, there's less than a kizayit left, volume-wise. Amar Le Misfarad Kizayit Gadol Ba'inan, Beinoni Ba'inan. So the answer there was a little bit different. The answer there was no. Rabbi Yochanan was eating an oversized olive. When we speak about the issue of a kizayit, we mean a regular-sized olive. So when Rabbi Yochanan had an oversized olive, when he ate the olive, it's true that the pit would be removed, but still from the flesh of the fruit of the olive that was left, that's as much as a medium-sized olive's flesh, and so he ate the right amount. So the afal gav is even though the shakli garinte pashle shiura, right? So even though he finished and he had taken away the pit, in this case he did not swallow it whole, but he got rid of the pit. Nonetheless, there was enough of a shiur left from the kizayit itself, from the big olive, such that it was like a kazayit beinoni. So the Gemara says, or rather Tosafot say, the hashda, and now, ihavi uvda dehashas shalanu, hainu ha'id Yerushalmi, if our story is really the same story as the Yerushalmi story, so if so, in kain cholik al shalanu, then the Yerushalmi really is mechalik against ours. We don't rely upon it, right, to make a bracha achrona when you ate a beria. Because the Yerushalmi and the Bavli, when they get to machloket, who wins? Halacha ke Bavli. Because we have a principle in halacha, halacha ke batroi. And you see in the Bavli story, there was no argument made. Well, it was a beria. The argument was, no, he had an oversized olive. When he removed the pit, he still had enough olive that he could eat that it was like a zayit beinoni. Midolo shanile. Since our shas did not mention that there was a bracha afterward, on account of the fact of beria, that wasn't the reason, but rather it was that there was the correct quantity. B'shum de beria, right? So that teaches us that our Gemara, we would actually say, based on the Bavli, that we reject the idea that a beria, if it's less than a kizayit, requires a bracha achrona. So in other words, not like the story of Rabbi Yochanan and the Yerushalmi, but the version of the story in the Bavli is the one we're going to credit. So to say it differently, if you have a food, according to what Tosafot is saying now, if you have a food that is from the 7 species of Israel, and it's a grape, you're eating the whole grape, but you ate less than a kizayit, you do not make a bracha achrona, even though you could say, well, I had a beria. And then practically, if you ate a seed of a pomegranate, you'd make the bracha bari priya eitz when you ate it, but one seed would not be enough. It's a beria. Yeah, but the Bali Tosafot would say it sounds like if you're going to compare these two stories and say that they're really the same story, then the version in the Bavli clarifies for us. We consider that to be the more accurate story. That really the issue was there was an oversized olive, and that really was what was going on. Not that he swallowed an object that was a beria.
So
But then Tosafot say, "Avav Shama yesh shnei masim hayu Shama shnei masim." What if really it was two separate stories? What if there are two totally separate stories? They're not in conflict. V'hod Yerushalmi have a zayit shalem v'achloi magarin to have a beria. Maybe the story in Yerushalmi is coming to teach us that really the story in Yerushalmi is the story of beria. Here, I'll make you crazy, right? Here, two stories. Story one, we could say maybe story one is the Bav, is Yerushalmi. In that story, it's a full zayit. He swallowed it, lock, stock, and barrel, including the pit. So therefore, that's a beria. Maybe we learn a halacha there. But our shas, lo haya bo garin, shekain stam zayit maliach, v'lo garin hu, v'lo hava barich beria, right? And that's not considered a beria because it was a salted olive without its pit. So therefore, it was no longer a beria. And therefore, they had to give the answer that it must have been an oversized olive in that story. The Zayit Yerushalmi, the one in the Yerushalmi story, was really a small Zayit. It was smaller than the size of a Benoni. It wasn't a regular size olive, it was a mini olive. And therefore, what happened? The individual, Rabbi Yochanan, ate the smaller sized olive, smaller than the actual shear of a zayit, but because it was a beria, it was good enough. And the Bali Tosafot conclude the following. You're going to love or hate the answer depending on who you are as a person. If you want to get yourself out of trouble altogether, what should you do? You should always eat a kazayit, even with an object that's a beria, to stay away from suffix.
As a physician, I disagree, Rabbi.
Pardon?
I say, as a physician, I disagree.
Explain.
Because there is some element of sakana eating the pit, you know.
Yeah, I've never understood that story myself. But the conclusion of the Gemara, the Tosafot here is not, you should therefore eat the pit. The conclusion is, don't eat one little olive and say it's enough for a bracha chorona, say I'm in a suffix. Say I'll have to have another one and another one.
So
the person next to you is saying, you have to watch your eating. So yeah, but I have to eat a shear before I could say a bracha chorona. So
why do we even need to use beria? Why don't you try to say it's either a size or a bates? I mean, those are the measurements we've always used. Why is this beria? What I don't even know.
It's introduced here as an extra factor, an extra characteristic. A beria means that it's an object that has a certain wholeness to it. It's a standalone item. And it actually, through the halachic system, has various implications. A beria is not batal b'shishim, for instance.
But it's not an actual measurement.
I said it's another kind of characteristic. It's
okay.
A qualitative characteristic, and it's not a quantitative characteristic. And it turns out, in halacha, we care about both of these, qualitative and quantitative. But what Tosafot just did now, was to try to understand what is going on. They're circling around to get to the actual Gemara with Rabbi Tzadok, but the point is to introduce the idea here. This whole section is called the section about the beria, and realizing that not all we care about to make a bracha achrona is the single question of, did I eat enough? Sometimes it's a consideration of, did you eat something whole? And maybe that's going to be enough. Now, in the end, Tosafot kind of, you could say, chicken out or hedge their bets, and they say, well, stay out of suffix, because we don't know is it story 1 and story 2, or is it really one story that's told in 2 versions, in which case our version in our Gemara, the Bavli, will overtake the version and supersede the version in the Yerushalmi, which means we would not hold of beria as a characteristic. L'may nafkamina, if someone did eat a beria that was a smaller than a kazayit, then a person would say, I don't know, should make a bracha achrona or not. You can't stop make a bracha, suffix bracha lahakel, so you wouldn't do it. But the truth is, if it's one of the Zayin Minim, you're really supposed to make a bracha achrona, so you lost the opportunity, right? So that's a failed opportunity to relate to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. To thank Hashem for the fruits of Eretz Yisrael, whether it's literally grown there or not, is of no moment, because the Zayin Minim is the Zayin Minim wherever they are, right? And then Tosafot would say, well, maybe there are two different stories, story one, story two, from two different shasas, and they're not contradicting each other at all. They're two different cases. And that really we do in the Bavli, if there's nothing to countermand it, maybe we would hold of the case of the situation of Beria. And if we hold the situation of Beria, then we've rescued the concept that one of the characteristics we're looking for to decide whether or not we say bracha achrona is not quantitative, but qualitative. Is this a whole unit? And that would be enough. Next topic in Tosafot. Ready?
Yalla.
V'davka li'inyan bracha shala acharav. Specifically the bracha that's afterward. Aval, however, lefanav mevarach afil pachim mikazayit bechol davar. The lefanav lo ba'inan shir. Daslan b'olam zeb lo bracha. This is well known. Yeah. Everybody knows this. This is a basic. We talked about this a few minutes ago. Kidamashma me'uvta de Rab Tzadok, which is evident from the story of Rab Tzadok in the Gemara that we've been learning, 26b, the Mishnah. To Ka'amar v'lo Birech Acharav, specifically he didn't bench after, meaning for sure he benched before. He said a bracha rishona, kida parishit, as was explained by Rashi. Mishum de like Rabbi Yehuda, mas mahal fun of Birech. So he held like Rabbi Yehuda, okay. So, but yet, i.e. that he needed a kibetza, therefore he didn't say the bracha achrona, but at least the bracha rishona, everybody holds of that. V'chein pirish bekuntras. Okay? Now, v'amrinan b'Yerushalmi, v'tchilat parak ketzad mevarchin, same parak of, that's the sixth parak of Masechet Brachot in the Yerushalmi edition. Kol shomer alav shlosh brachot omer lefanav hamotzlech min haaretz. V'chol shein omer alav gimel brachot, ein omer alav hamotzlech min haaretz. What is shalosh brachot? It's birkat hamazon. It's not the bracha me'ein shalosh, which means of the mold of the three, in the manner of the three, but rather it's the bracha of the three. Back in the day, and the Yerushalmi was still catching on. Let's say the fourth bracha, the bracha Hatovu Meitiv, had not come into existence yet. The one ending in Al Yechasreinu, that was enacted by the Chachamim and by Sheni Al Haruge Beitar. So it had not come into be. Okay. Now, if that's true, right? Where there's a statement, if you don't say the bracha, the bracha, if you don't say you're not going to bench on it, you don't say motzi lechem min haaretz. If that's actually correct, right? And that's what we say. So then we have the following question: Hatevun. Here's the question: Hare pachot mikazayid dein omer alav shalosh brachot me'ato liomru lefanav motzi lechem min haaretz. Is that true, that if you're going to eat less than a kazayit, which means you're not going to bench, you also don't say amotzech min haaretz? This was Ed's question, George's question. Remember now, who asked this question before? I think Ed, right? Yeah, you're eating a really, really small quantity. So how could that be? Ha'amar Rabbi Yaakov bar Acha l'shar mina mitzrecha perush lo atil chayv davar sheyesh bo kasir davar she'ein bo kasir. Right. So the idea is here that Rabbi Yaakov bar Acha actually says that even if it's nothing in have a shear, you still have to make a bracha before it, and the bracha before it's still going to be a motzlach min haaretz, even if it's not going to be a bracha after it. That's the halacha. What about that? So how could one Gemara say if it's less than a shear, you're not going to say the bracha of the shalosh brachot, meaning birkat hamazon means you don't say motzlach min haaretz? We have this explicit statement of Yaakov bar Acha that says you do that regardless of the shear. Ela atil chag being pat l'shar machal shel chamesh aminim kigon masa kedera. If you make a casserole, it's cooked, it's not baked, and you're going to do something with the 5 grains, but the 5 grains that you are doing something with, you are cooking and not baking. So you have not made it into bread. Shein nevarchen alav gimel brachot. right? It's just not, you're just not going to make a bracha on that. Same thing with the kuba da'ara. Kuba da'ara is some kind of a dish that they would make where they would dig a hole in the ground and fill it with water and with flour, and somehow the oven was actually in the ground, so they somehow lit it up and it baked that way, and it pulled it out of the ground and eat it. That's how it was done, but particular way. It was in the hole, not of the ground itself. It was the hole within the oven itself. But it was a particular thing you did. It wasn't a regular way of baking. You didn't just make the dough and put it on the shelf, but it's like a bread maker. You have a mold, and you threw the materials in, but it's a hole in the bottom of the floor of the oven itself. So, like that. Or pada baba kisnin. Pada baba kisnin in English, pocket bread. Pocket bread is calzone, a calzone, a borekas. Pata baba kisnin. There's all different questions about that. So although they're made of dough, so those things are mizonot. Hilo kava sudatayu alayhu, because you're not going to be koveya suda on these things.
It's as much bread as, or more than what you eat in a pizza slice.
Yeah, right. Pizza, I told you, there's suffix about pizza.
Right.
Suffix. Pizza, the difference is that it's open, not closed. And pizza, the difference is that now it's become more and more associated with being a meal item. And this gets complicated. I mean, there's a difference between eating a borekas versus eating a very large item, which you are. And this is, you see the red over here, what I highlighted in red?
Mm-hmm.
The whole point is kilo kavasu te ilave. I didn't set my meal on this baked good. But if you did, you go to a restaurant, what are we going to have? For lunch, I'm having a calzone. It's a pocket. It's got whatever it is. It's stuffed with cheese. It's stuffed with broccoli. It's stuffed with the mushrooms. Okay, but you koveh suda, it's a meal. So that's the dion of the poskim, right? So we have this also. What about bread made of rice? Bread made out of rice or millet? So for all these, you don't make the bracha matzich min aretz on those things.
So for pita, you don't make hamotzi?
So pita, as an example, absolutely you make hamotzi, because when you eat it, it's only your kaveh the suda on it, right? There are shilas though. I will tell you, the Sfardim, I do not believe wash for a pita. Sfardim also don't wash for matzah.
Really?
I will tell you also.
Sfardim only wash for matzah during Pesach. Otherwise, they consider it not to be hamotzach matzah. That's the psak of Shulchan Aruch.
Really?
Sfardim don't necessarily, and this is a big shiloh when you have Sfardim. My kids have friends who are Sfardi. We got into this problem. Unfortunately, it's unfortunate. Like for them, it's the way we live. They come to the house and we're serving egg challah. So now there's a shaila if egg challah can make a motzi on it. So Ashkenazim, the Ramah Paskins, egg challah can make a motzi. Sfardim really can only make a motzi minaretz on a water challah. So when a Sfardi comes to my house, I tell him, "Oh, don't worry, I'm going to get matzah." He says, "No, not going to help. Not going to help." It says bread and water. So no, matzah, the mechaber paskin during the rest of the year, not going to work.
Wow.
So these are complicated halachas. But I'm showing you our daf is a headquarters for this discussion. We're not getting to all the practical conclusions, but all to say it raises these questions, important questions. And here you have. You don't make a.
By the way, on a wrap, Rabbi, a wrap is also hamotzi.
So it's actually a big machlokes also. Is a wrap hamotzi.
Because the CRC, when the CRC came in and said that, in terms of the restaurants, you go order like a wrap or a tuna, whatever it is, it's hamotzi.
Yeah, so that's interesting. I tell people hamotzi also, but I've heard quoted from different poskim who hold not like that. They say no, really, it's only a mizonot. Why? You're wrapping it. And so I'm more, again, the line that I come from. You could say teacher to student focuses on those red words a lot more. Are you kaveh suda? You're not kaveh suda.
Right.
And there will be there's nafkaminas in other directions as well. And there are sometimes the suffix. Here are the different kinds of breads. You're basically saying for this, you're not going to say hamotzach min aretz on the, if it's rice bread, if it's made out of millet, you just not have afagav, even though the Birech Ketzim Mavarich, even though it discusses there nafgalan bracha betchila bekal v'chomri basof kshu saveya mevarich shura ev lo kol shekain. Sorry, this is really another little subtopic.
Rabbi.
Can I do 2 more minutes? Let me just finish this few more lines, okay? So we get the picture. And then it's the end of the subject, basically, because then after that it's about drinks. So even though the beginning of Ketzim Avarchin and Daf Lamed Hey and Brachot, there's a classic Kal V'chomer. It sounds like it's going to stand, but it doesn't necessarily really apply as a real Kal V'chomer. They're basically like this. If, with a thumb, if it says in the Torah, V'chalta v'savata v'rachta, you have to make a bracha achrona, because you're saveya, you have to make a bracha kshura ev lo kol shekain. All the more so when you're still hungry, shouldn't you have to make a bracha? Now, if that's true, using that kal v'chomer, say, wow, if that's true, and bracha achrona of Birkat Hamazon is deoraita, then what does that make a bracha lefaneha? Deoraita. We don't paskin that way. Nobody holds that a Birkat Hananin lefaneha make a bracha motzach menaret shakal mivar. Nobody holds that any of those brachas are deoraita. But the Gemara says, well, even though there is such a kal v'chomer, mikol makom lo shayach lemeimer dayo. Even though that is true, that we do make this kal v'chomer, we're willing to say it. We say nonetheless we will not invoke what's called dayo lavobi nadin liot kenadun, which means that even if you're eating a mashu, right? That means to say you're not going to eat the right size. You're not going to eat a kazayit worth or a kabetza, depending how you're holding that machloket. Nonetheless, you are going to have to make a bracha rishona, right? So there's a principle. I skipped too many lines here. Let me dial back. I'm sorry. This word dayo is a little code that means dayo lavomin adin liot kenadun. It's sufficient to extrapolate from the law that which was adjudicated. So let me give you the application. It'll make more sense. With the thumb again. Since when it says v'chalta v'savatu v'rachta, it requires a certain threshold of a shear in order to recite that bracha. And since the Gemara wants to look at step 1. Step 2, the Gemara wants to learn a kal v'chomer, that if when you're satiated and you're full, you have to make a bracha achrona, so obviously you have to make a bracha lifaneh, bracha rishona, before it extrapolated that way. So you might have thought now, step 3, that really therefore you need a shear in the bracha lifaneh, since you needed a shear in the bracha achareha. Kamash malan, we do not say. But rather the conclusion is U'v'mashu mevarech tchila afagav d'lo mevarech. Whoa, I went the wrong way. Afagav. Sorry, I'm new at this. Did I mention? Afagav d'lo mevarech basof. Why not? So Tosafot goes on to explain why not. Tosafot say because the kal v'chomer ain't el gilu milta ba'alma. It's not a real kal v'chomer. It's just to demonstrate something that we already know to be true. You're not really learning it as a kal v'chomer gamur. Because truly the bracha lefanav lav deoraita, because everyone agrees that the bracha lefanav is not a bracha deoraita. Therefore, you kind of a kal v'chomer from a pasuk to teach you something and then say that it's not deoraita. It's because we already knew there's something called the bracha rishona. The kal v'chomer was like icing on the cake to amplify the concept that it makes sense, but not that really it's deoraita. The Torah never says you have to make a bracha rishona. Implications. Safek brachot lahakel, as an example. The amount of shear totally doesn't matter either. We'd had a lot about bal keri last week. So a bal keri back in the day, you recall, we learned brachot in the daf not so long ago. The bal keri back in the day was forbidden from doing mitzvot derabbanan. Why? Ezra made a takana that people shouldn't go, let's say, directly from their bed straight into davening and learning and what have you. So to encourage people to make sure that they would clean themselves, he made a psak, takana of Ezra. One of them was that a bal keri may not fulfill mitzvot derabbanan. So among the mitzvot derabbanan is making a bracha rishona. So as we learn it there, that was as an example, you would say Birkat Hamazon, that's the oraita. You would not say bracha rishona on any food if you were a Baal Keri till you went to the mikvah. The Gemara already itself, you will recall, already says in the days of the Gemara, they stopped observing this takana of Ezra. Hasidim and Anshe Maisis started bringing it back, but it's not really accepted in the Litvische, Misnagische Welt, let's say, in the Yeshivische Welt, not really accepted. But among the Hasidim, they championed this idea. V'chein Perek Hayakore, Tanya Polim Shayu Osim Malach Etzel Balabait, Ochlin Pitan and Marachim Fanah of Mvarchim Acharesh De Brachot. The workers who are up in the tree, they have to eat, so they eat their bread, but they don't make a bracha before, they just make bracha on after, and they roll bracha 3 into bracha 2 to save time. I never figured out how they're saving so much time, but they're saving time. If it's on the boss's time. The last part of Tosafot is about drinking. So it's already 9:06, which means I already went too far. Okay. We'll have to do this next week. I don't want to take people's time and abuse the time too much. I'm trying to do tshuva. Let's work next week, God willing. Monday night, we'll finish this Tosafot, and then we'll start the Mishnah promptly. So that way it'll be the little part will be the finishing of the Tosafot, and then the larger part will be the Mishnah and the Gemara going forward. All right. Someone had a question before. I'm sorry I didn't take it. Still have
Never
one?
mind, next week.
Hold your question. Write it down, because I'm sorry. I didn't mean to monopolize so much. At least we got some of it done. So we're some of the way through this Tosafot, which I hope you'll agree with me, is pretty foundational. And you see, they're learning actually a lot. Headquarters right here in the story through Tzadok, which they're going to circle back around to. You'll see toward the end of this Tosafot. Yirtzeh Hashem will get